Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International. Representatives from England's West Mercia police say that a 44-year-old man was recently slapped with a hefty prison sentence after he led officers on a dangerous and dramatic high-speed chase earlier this year, while already wanted on a number of charges. According to reports, the incident took place one night this past August when members of West Mercia Police's Operational Patrol Unit spotted a stolen Porsche Boxster traveling down some roads near the town of Kidderminster. The vehicle was being driven by 44-year-old Michael McDonough, who had stolen it a few days earlier. Not only that, but McDonough was a serial burglar who was wanted at the time on various charges by police forces all over the UK. When officers tried to pull McDonough over, it quickly became apparent that he wasn't willing to go down without a fight, however. Instead of stopping, he accelerated to speeds of roughly 100 miles per hour and began to drive erratically in an attempt to avoid police, swerving across both sides of the road and braking suddenly multiple times to try and cause an accident. Even after police deployed spike strips and managed to deflate all of the tires on the stolen Porsche, McDonough reportedly continued on, ramming police vehicles to try and get away. He was finally forced to stop several minutes later and was taken into custody by at least 4 officers. In addition to burglary and fraud charges, McDonough's dangerous stunt got him slapped with a series of other offenses related to the high-speed chase. These included dangerous driving, escaping lawful custody, obstructing police, and driving without a license or insurance. The 44-year-old was sentenced to 10 years in prison at the end of October, but the news of the story only broke this week when West Mercia police released a post about the crime on social media. Authorities in Japan's Ibaraki prefecture say that a local 22-year-old woman won't be winning any Mother of the Year awards after she allegedly made the unimaginably cruel and selfish choice to leave her young daughter trapped at home while she went out for a day of fun. According to reports, the incident began sometime on the evening of December 11th when a neighbor of 22-year-old Mio Minigawa heard some unsettling noises coming from her home. When they went to investigate out of concern, the neighbor discovered, to their horror, that Minigawa's 3-year-old daughter was alone and crying inside, and appeared to have string partially tied around her body. Understandably, upon realizing this, the neighbor immediately called police. While the neighbor might have thought that they had witnessed some sort of kidnapping in progress or home invasion gone wrong, the truth arguably turned out to be even darker. It turned out that Minigawa had tied up her own daughter before leaving the house early that morning. She had allegedly gone skiing for the day and didn't want the 3-year-old getting outside. Police say Minigawa didn't return home until very late that night. When the 22-year-old did finally return, she was immediately arrested on suspicion of abusing her daughter. Authorities say that she later admitted to what had happened. According to reports, Minigawa lives alone with her daughter and is unemployed. At the time of this recording, police are conducting a further investigation into the 3-year-old's home life, and in the meantime, she is being kept in protective custody. Authorities in northern France say that 3 people are injured this week and several others are receiving psychological counseling following a terrifying axe attack at a grocery store. According to reports, the incident took place on December 12th at a Lidl supermarket in the town of Jeumont, close to the country's border with Belgium. It allegedly began around 7 p.m. when the suspect, identified only as a man in his 40s, entered the grocery store armed with an axe. Witnesses say that he was also carrying a bag with several knives in it. Once inside, the man reportedly began attacking customers at the checkout area. Terrified shoppers ran for their lives as the suspect allegedly targeted those close to him. One person who tried to block the man's path with a shopping cart lost a finger while trying to get away, while a woman was reportedly hit with the axe in the head. By the time emergency responders arrived at the scene, the suspect had reportedly turned his weapon on himself. While thankfully no one was killed, 4 people, including the alleged attacker, required hospitalization. 2 of the victims are said to have sustained serious injuries, and witnesses say that there was a disturbing amount of blood at the scene. So much so that one officer reportedly slipped in it while running inside. At least a dozen people have apparently since been treated by psychologists and doctors to help them cope with the trauma of what they witnessed. At the time of this recording, few additional details are available about the incident. Police have so far not released the name of the suspect, nor have they provided any information about a possible motive. The situation is still developing. Authorities in the Italian capital of Rome say that 3 people are dead this week and several others are wounded following a devastating shooting at a local cafe. According to reports, the incident took place sometime on the morning of December 11th when members of a condo association called Valle Verde Consorzio were holding their monthly meeting at a coffee bar in the city's north. The routine meeting was a chance for residents to discuss things like upcoming maintenance and any complaints or problems they might have at their building. The proceedings were apparently unfolding as they normally would, when out of nowhere, they were terrifyingly interrupted by a man armed with a gun. The man allegedly stormed into the coffee bar, yelled, quote, "I'll kill you all," and then began to open fire on those inside. Though attendees of the meeting were able to tackle the gunman to the ground and restrain him, sadly, it was too late to save everyone. 3 women were killed in the shooting, while at least 4 others were injured. The women have since been identified as Elisabetta Salenzi, Sabina Sparandio, and Nicoletta Golisano. Nicoletta's death in particular has been drawing attention, as she was reportedly a close friend of Italy's new Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni. Following the brutal crime, Meloni released a statement about her friend, saying in part that she would always remember her for being beautiful and happy. As for the suspect, police have not officially released his name. However, multiple reports we came across from Italian media have identified him as 57-year-old Claudio Campiti. These reports also state that Campiti was a resident of the same building that the condo association was meeting about, and that he had a history of bitter disputes with some of the association's board members. The gun that Campiti allegedly used in the shooting was apparently stolen from a nearby shooting range shortly before the attack was carried out. At the current time, this is more or less all we know about the case. The nature of Campiti's disputes with the condo association have not been released, and police have not officially commented as to any kind of motive. They have said, however, that they are investigating the shooting range where the gun was reportedly stolen to see exactly how this happened. The situation is still developing. Authorities in the Argentine province of Buenos Aires say that they are investigating the suspicious death of a 60-year-old veteran this week who was found dead in his home after allegedly hanging out with a group of women he had met on a dating app. According to reports, the incident began sometime last week when Daniel Alfredo Rustican was found deceased in his home in the Buenos Aires suburb of Gregorio de Laferrère. The 60-year-old Falklands War veteran was found lying face up in his bedroom with his hands and feet bound to his bed. Additionally, his phone and pickup truck were missing from the house. Police later found Daniel's stolen Ford Ranger abandoned about 5 blocks from his home. They have so far managed to lift an unknown set of fingerprints from the vehicle's steering wheel and also say that a knife was recovered from the back seat. That being said, authorities say Daniel's actual cause of death was a fatal heart attack. When authorities started questioning those close to Daniel, they learned that shortly before he died, he had met up with a group of 3 women who he had reportedly met through the dating app Tinder. One of Daniel's close friends told police that Daniel had sent him an audio message that night confirming that he was hanging out with the women. At the current time, the exact circumstances of Daniel's death remains a mystery. Police say that they are still awaiting toxicology reports, which will help them determine whether the 60-year-old may have been given something that triggered his heart attack, or whether his death was an accident and the suspects merely took advantage of the situation and robbed him. In either case, police are now trying to track down the 3 women Daniel was supposedly with on the night of his death. One of Daniel's daughters says that she has appealed to neighbors in the area to see if anyone can help identify these women, and investigators say they are also trying to trace them through Tinder. The situation is still developing. Representatives from the Royal Thai Police say that a 25-year-old alleged fraudster seriously screwed up recently when she unwittingly tried to impersonate a senior police inspector while committing one of her crimes. According to reports, the whole thing started this past fall when 42-year-old police major Kanjira Norasan, a crime suppression subdivision inspector from Bangkok, was approached by several concerned friends. They said that they had received messages from a Facebook account pretending to be her, where she had said that she was desperately in need of money. Wanting to help their friend, several people had transferred money to the accounts this person had provided, only later realizing it was a scam. Sadly, the victims lost a combined total of approximately 400,000 baht, or about $11,500 US. When Kanjira was informed that someone had impersonated her to carry out the terrible scam, she immediately put her investigative skills into action. After taking statements from all of the victims, she started tracking the suspect through financial transactions and Facebook records. Eventually, she was able to identify the alleged scammer, 25-year-old Nataya Komaram. Soon after, a warrant was obtained for her arrest, though there was still the job of actually tracking the 25-year-old down. Finally, on December 11th, Nataya was traced to a rental unit in Khoi district in the province of Saraburi. Kanjira reportedly had the honor of personally placing the 25-year-old under arrest. She has now been charged with making false and fraudulent statements on computer systems and public fraud. Following her arrest, Nataya reportedly claimed that when she initially carried out the fraud, she had no idea she was using a police inspector's identity. She said that once she realized, she tried to reimburse the victims, but it was too late. Kanjira was already onto her. She fled her home province of Nakhon Ratchasima to try to elude capture, but, as we all know now, she wasn't very successful. Authorities in the German state of Saxony say that 2 people are dead this week, including the suspect, after a man allegedly killed his mother and then took 2 people hostage at a local shopping mall. According to reports, the situation began just before 11 a.m. on December 10th, when police in the city of Dresden announced that they were evacuating parts of the city center. This included the famous Stritzelmarkt Christmas market, where thousands of people generally flock daily at this time of the year. The evacuation was carried out after an armed suspect, identified only as a 40-year-old German man, went into the nearby Altmarkt Gallery shopping center and allegedly held 2 hostages at gunpoint. As heavily armed police began to arrive in the area, officers established communication with the suspect by phone, attempting to negotiate with him for the release of the hostages. At the same time, they learned that this was not the first incident the man had been involved in that day. According to reports, earlier that morning, he had shot and killed his 62-year-old mother at her apartment roughly 5 miles away, and had shot out the glass door of a Dresden radio station office located close to the city's main train station. While the details of what happened next have not been released at the time of this recording, we know that the hostage situation came to an end sometime after noon. Police stated that both victims had been rescued without physical injuries, though the 40-year-old had died in the operation. Currently, it appears that authorities have not specified whether the man took his own life or whether he was shot as part of the rescue. The victims have not been identified by name, but several sources state that they are a 38-year-old shop worker from the mall, as well as a 9-year-old who is believed to be the child of one of the suspect's friends. As for the suspect himself, all authorities have said is that they believe he acted alone and that he suffered from undisclosed mental health issues. The situation is still under investigation. People across Australia are in mourning this week after 6 people were killed, among them 2 police officers, in what has been called a terrifying ambush and execution. According to reports, the incident began at around 4:30 p.m. on December 12th, when 4 officers from the Queensland Police travelled to a remote property in Wieambilla, a rural community located approximately a 4 hours drive west of Brisbane. The roughly 100-acre piece of land belonged to a 47-year-old man named Gareth Train, and was where he lived with his wife, 45-year-old Stacey Train. The group of Queensland officers reportedly made the journey after being contacted by their law enforcement counterparts in New South Wales, who requested that they follow up on a missing persons report that they had received. They were looking for Gareth's younger brother, 46-year-old Nathaniel Train, a former school principal who apparently hadn't been seen for several months. Sadly, police had no idea what they were walking into. According to reports, 2 of the officers, 26-year-old Matthew Arnold and 29-year-old Rachel McCrow, were the first ones to exit their vehicles after arriving at Gareth Train's home. However, as they walked up a path toward the house, all hell broke loose. The 2 were allegedly shot and killed execution style before they ever had a chance to react. All 3 members of the Train family were reportedly armed to the teeth and were dressed in camouflage. Realizing that they had walked into an ambush, the remaining 2 police officers, Constables Randall Kirk and Keely Bruff, attempted to get to safety. Kirk managed to escape in one of their police vehicles after being grazed by a bullet and taking heavy fire, while Bruff was forced to run into the surrounding bushland and attempt to hide. She would apparently remain there for the next couple of hours until heavily armed police reinforcements could arrive. During that time, the 3 suspects allegedly tried their best to hunt her down, setting fires across the property and burning the remaining police vehicles at the scene in an attempt to smoke her out. Miraculously, Bruff managed to survive, though would later say that at times the flames came so close that she could feel the heat on her legs. She apparently had to stay extremely still as poisonous snakes slithered past her while also trying to avoid the fire. As if this all weren't nightmarish enough to imagine, apparently, Bruff had only been a member of the police force for 9 weeks at the time of the incident. Sadly, between the time that the fires were lit and reinforcements could arrive, the smoke caught the concern of one of Gareth Train's neighbors, 58-year-old Alan Dare. Fearing that his neighbors were in trouble, Alan reportedly came to the property to see what was going on, only to be brutally gunned down by the 3 suspects as well. Even after specially trained police arrived at the scene, the Trains reportedly refused to surrender. Instead, they tried to claim the lives of more officers, engaging them in a standoff and shootouts that lasted for several more hours. The siege finally came to an end at around 10:30 p.m., when all 3 of the suspects were shot and killed. In the aftermath of the horrific incident, investigators uncovered evidence that all of the suspects, but particularly Gareth, had heavily steeped themselves in conspiracy theories. Chillingly, during the middle of the incident, after the initial shootings but before reinforcements arrived, Gareth and Stacey reportedly took the time to film a video which they uploaded to their YouTube account. The now deleted video reportedly starts with a quote, "callous, calm confession," and in it, Gareth and Stacey allegedly go on to discuss their views, with Stacey reading passages from the Bible and talking about the end of the world. Police say that the suspects believed in a range of conspiracies, and in other online writings and videos, Gareth discussed everything from anti-Semitic world takeover theories to anti-government sovereign state movements to the Freemasons, mind control and government psyops, vaccines, and doomsday preparations. At the current time, police say that they are still investigating all of the evidence related to the Train's conspiracy obsessions. Nathaniel and Gareth's father has since come out saying that the brothers cut themselves off from the family years ago and that they had an unsettling fascination with guns since the time they were young. As for the injured officer, Randall Kirk, police say that he has undergone surgery and is now recovering well in hospital. In a statement given with his pregnant wife this week, he mentioned the outpouring of support they had received and said that it meant a lot to know that the community cared for him and his fellow officers. He also said that his main thoughts were with the family of the fallen officers at this time. At the time of this recording, the investigation into the horrifying incident continues. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a minute to thank our amazing supporters over on Patreon. As many of you are aware, our situation on YouTube always seems to be a bit uncertain, but our patrons help to ensure that we can continue to make content like this long term without having to worry as much about what surprises might be thrown our way. Plus, patrons also get access to 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. If you'd like to help support the channel directly, head over to patreon.com/crimezone to join. You can also find that link in the description below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and take care.